Okay, so the second part of topic number 3 is about angle bisectors, because it still has to do with the word bisect. It's even in the actual vocab word. It still has to talk about cutting things in half into two congruent parts. So the angle bisector splits an angle into two congruent angles. For this video, ignore everything right now that's on this other half. It's just my app that's doing something weird, and I'm sorry about that, but just try to ignore it for now. So let me draw a picture to show you kind of more what an angle bisector is doing. So I have an angle, right? I want to cut that angle directly in half. Remember, this is the measure of the angle right there. So when I cut it directly in half, what I've now created is two equal pieces right here and here. Okay, so what can we put? If they're two equal pieces, I can put a tick mark on this one and a tick mark on that one. Okay, so let's look at example 1 and use that to help us solve some problems. So on number 1, it's given that NE, that ray, is an angled bisector of angle AND. Okay, before we talk about the measure of AND and what the problem is, I want to actually show you how we mark the diagram if it's an angle bisector. So the angle that we're bisecting is AND, this large angle there, and NE is cutting it in half. So we'll put some tick marks because we'll have two congruent pieces of the angle. This side right here is congruent to that side right there. What I also told you, though, now let's go and move on and solve the problem. I told you that the measure of AND was 96. Well, again, AND is the larger angle. So I know this entire angle right here is measuring 96 degrees. And the question that we're trying to answer is find ANE. Well, that's this little half angle here. And END is this angle right here. And what's lucky is because it was an angle bisector, we know that they're the same, right? So what can we do with this idea of 96? If NE is splitting it in half into two congruent angles, I'm going to take 96 and I'm going to divide it by 2. I think that's 48. I'm hoping my math is correct. And my answer for both of those angles would be 48 and 48, because they have to be the same. And 48 plus 48 is 96. So the measure of ANE is 48 degrees, and the measure of END is 48 degrees. All right, let's again look at one more example, okay? Just like we did with midpoint, that has to do with some more algebra. So again, just try to ignore what's going on the left over here, and we're going to focus more on the right here. So up top up there, I gave you that BC bisects angle ABD. So that means that BC is an angle bisector. Right away, I want to mark that in my diagram. Okay? The angle that's getting bisected is ABD, this large angle. So these two segments, these two angles here are going to be equal. Now something else that we haven't really seen is, notice up here I gave you the measurements of different angles, not in the picture this time. So we want to make sure that we label those measurements in the actual picture. I like to kind of follow along with the letters so that I make sure I label it in the correct place. So the measure of ABC, that's this angle here, is 2x minus 4. So I'm going to put that in the picture. And then the measure of CBD, that's this angle here, that is 4x minus 54. Now let's start to answer the question. Notice I haven't even read the questions yet, and I've marked and labeled everything that I know into the picture. And looking at question A now, it says, like the familiar directions that we've seen, set up an equation and solve for x. So looking at the picture, I'm like, what do I know about the two expressions for x that I have? Well, the tick marks, that means that they are equal. So this is another example where I have two parts being equal, and the equation I can set up is 2x minus 4 must equal 4x minus 54. Okay, I think we're all capable of solving this. I think I get x equals 25. Maybe double check by subtracting 2 and moving things around. But I think you should get x equals 25 when you solve that equation. If you want to pause the video and try that on your own, that's what I would recommend. And now we can use that, right? The whole point of finding x is let's use that to find the measure. Well, I want to find the measure of angle ABC. So that means I'm going to plug this into my orange expression that's holding the place of that. So let's evaluate. Let's take 2 times x minus 4, and let's plug in 25. Ooh, sorry, that does not look like 25. 25. 2 times 25 is 50. 50 minus 4 equals 46 degrees. And if you would like to check your work, right, I might plug into this expression and evaluate that expression, because that should also be 46, because they should be equal. You might experience other types of problems with angle bisectors as you work through the classwork or the homework, but this is a very standard example that you'll see very often. And at this point, I think that you're ready to complete homework number 1.3, and we will see you in class.